Now to some breaking news. Two big snapshots on the economy right now. First, the June jobs report. The Labor Department says the U.S. economy added 4.8 million jobs last month. Economists predicted 3 million. The unemployment rate declined from 13.3% to 11.1%. Joining us now, former Treasury official and Morning Joe economic analyst Steve Ratner and former acting Secretary of Labor under President Obama, Seth Harris. So, Steve, I know you're just absorbing these numbers as we are. 4.8 million jobs added, unemployment down to 11%. Good news for the economy, at least from where we are, certainly.
Sure. There's no other way to look at this but as good news, and we all, of course, want good news. Economists have had a particularly difficult time in forecasting any numbers, including jobless numbers, as we saw last month. They got a bit closer this month, but there were surprises to the upside. Getting the employment rate down to 11% is definitely better than any of us expected. I think the conventional forecasts for the rest of this year still show unemployment at or around double digits, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see as we dig into these numbers what they actually mean. It is also worth just mentioning that these numbers are based on surveys that are taken in the middle of the month, in this case in the middle of June. And since then, of course, there's been some changes going on in terms of the lockdowns and behavior and spending, which we can talk about. But for the moment, yes, we have to look at this as good news.
So, Seth, what do you see in these numbers? Obviously, as Steve points out rightly, projections are very difficult right now, but nearly 5 million jobs added, objectively a great number.
Yeah, there's no question that this is a good number, but I fear that it's not an indicator at all for where we are going. Remember that these data were collected, Willie, 3 weeks ago, before the gigantic surge in infections and hospitalizations that we're seeing in many of our large states. It was before California, Arizona, Texas, Florida began reclosing those states. So these are good numbers, but they're not necessarily an indication that we're on a good trend line. It's also important to remember that 11.1% unemployment is disastrous. It is a horribly high number. It is 1.1% higher than the highest unemployment rate we had during the Great Recession. And while we have recovered jobs last month and this month, we've only recovered about a third of the jobs that we had lost in March, April, and May. One way to think about that is we had a 9-inch knife stuck in our back. The knife has been pulled out about 3 inches. That doesn't mean that the economy is now healthy.
All right, Steve, stand by. I want to get to you on where we're headed with this, but let's bring in Democratic Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy of Florida. She's a member of the House Ways and Means Committee, and she's leading a bipartisan effort to expand the employee retention tax credit to help keep workers connected to their jobs during the pandemic. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being on the show this morning. Looking at these numbers, your reaction, and how do you foresee your constituents making it through the next few months as this economy reacts to the coronavirus resurging?
Great to be with you, Mika. But I think, the unemployment numbers I expect will continue to fluctuate as states open and have to close and reopen. I think what's really problematic about the numbers that were released today is that over 1.4 million American workers lost their jobs last week. And that number of job losses has been steady, right around 1 million jobs. And in a state like Florida, when somebody loses their job, their ability to receive unemployment benefits is not certain. We've had a system that has been rife with issues. And so of the people who lose their jobs and file for unemployment, they're not getting the help that they need. That's why I think it's so critically important that we keep workers tethered to their jobs. And that's why I'm leading this effort to expand the employee retention tax credit, which basically was originally passed in the CARES package. So it's already in law. It is a mechanism mechanism that we have used in the aftermath of other natural disasters like Hurricane Katrina. It allows us to help employers keep their employees on payroll and tethered to their health benefits, which in a pandemic is critically important. And right now, our efforts to expand it is one of the few bipartisan things that is coming out of Congress. We passed it in the HEROES Act out of the House, and now we're looking to the Senate to act, because we know that if they can expand this tax credit, we'll be able to help 6.1 million companies and 60 million workers stay tethered to their jobs and their health benefits in this crisis.
Well, Steve Ratner, to this point, we'll look at the weekly jobless claims. The Labor Department says 1.4 million Americans filed for unemployment benefits last week. That brings the 15-week total since the pandemic began to 48.7 million. So, Steve, how do we square these two numbers? The jobless claims keep going up. The unemployment numbers go down.
Yeah, Mika, so the first number you mentioned, the 1.42 million, those are the number of people who filed for initial jobless claims. And as the Congresswoman said, there are people losing their jobs all the time. 1.4 million is more than twice the previous record. It is way above anything normal. So there is still a lot of job loss going on in this economy. The 42 or 3 million number is the total number of people who have filed for unemployment insurance, in other words, lost their jobs in the course of this. But many of those have then gotten their jobs back. So there are people, we have to not forget that there are people getting their jobs back, even as others are losing theirs. And so when you net all that out, you get to the current figure of something over 20 million Americans who are still out of work and looking for jobs. But I would also say that there are many, the way we report our unemployment numbers, it's only people who are out there actively looking for jobs. It doesn't include people who are working part-time who want to work full-time. It doesn't include people who are not looking for jobs but would like a job if there were one. And I haven't seen the newest numbers for those, but when you add all those numbers together, at least last month, it was still well over 20% of Americans who were not working at the jobs they wanted to be working at.
Congresswoman, it's Willie Geist. Good to have you on the show this morning. We were talking earlier, and I said these are objectively good numbers. It's good news that nearly 5 million Americans got their jobs back. But as Seth points out rightly, that's in the context of all the jobs we lost before. And it also points to big states that have had to now pause their reopening. So these numbers were taken before they shut down again, effectively. So what do you see in your district around the Orlando area, for example, theme parks, everything else, people wanting to be open right now? What are you hearing from your constituents about? Obviously, they want to go back to work. Obviously, they want their livelihoods back. They want security. But how do they balance that with public health and the health of their own families?
You know, I am hearing incredible amounts of uncertainty and fear from my constituents. We live in a state where our economy is heavily dependent on high-touch industries like tourism, and those industries are going to have a much longer runway to recovering to numbers that they had before. And unfortunately, in Florida, we are suffering not only from an economic crisis and a healthcare crisis, but also a crisis in governance. Tallahassee has just lacked the leadership that we needed as a state to safely reopen. They reopened without any real guidelines that aligned with public health officials' recommendations. We still don't have a mask and social distancing requirements coming out of Tallahassee. So we've had to depend on our local elected officials to do the right thing, to make sure that people can reopen in a way that is safe and secure, and so that we keep our constituents safe. One of the things that I think is, no matter who says that we're reopened, the only way that you see the economy starting back up is when people feel like it's safe for them to engage publicly again. And that's why I'm also working on a bill called the Clean Act that would provide a tax credit for businesses that provide safe working environments for their workers as well as for their consumers. We have to be able to provide, basic guidelines and basic conditions so that people feel safe re-engaging in the workplace and in the economy.
So, Congresswoman, before you go, I'm just wondering how your district is doing in terms of coronavirus numbers, cases, but also your thoughts on the RNC happening in Jacksonville, which I know is not in your district, but is happening in the state of Florida, given that this virus is still in the first phase.
Right now, in my district and across Florida, we are seeing a surge in the number of positivity rates, as well as an increase in hospitalizations. Public health officials have said that it is not safe to have large gatherings indoors. I think it's a real mistake for there to be this basically a vector in Florida at a time when we are facing so many new cases and we are starting to overwhelm our public health care system. It is incredibly irresponsible, and it is putting politics over the health and safety of the people. Irresponsible.
Congresswoman Stephanie Murphy, thank you very much. And Seth Harris, before you go, I know you were talking about some of these numbers being sort of a delayed reaction because they take, a few weeks to put together. And now we're having changes in the coronavirus and numbers and reopenings and closings. So what indicators are you looking at that help us understand where we're headed moving forward?
Well, the unemployment claims numbers, even though they're sort of a noisy series, give us an indication that, as Steve said, we still have a lot of people losing their jobs, even 15 weeks into this pandemic recession. It's interesting, in the unemployment report, we had 4.8 million more jobs, but all of those people were people who were returning from temporary furloughs. So we're still seeing high rates of outflow from jobs as well as the high rate of inflow. That's a bad indicator because the job creation is largely the consequence of government spending. It's the Paycheck Protection Program, it's unemployment benefits, it's food assistance, it's industry bailouts. So that is what is propping up the economy right now. And in July, some of that money is going to go away. The PPP program expires. The expanded unemployment benefits, the $600 additional check, that expires. And now Republicans in Congress are talking about spending as little as they can get away with or nothing. They can get away with that. Yeah. And that will be disastrous. The economy is not in a position to be able to support itself because there's so much fear among working people, so much fear among consumers right now. The Congresswoman was absolutely right about that. And so the economy is not going to be able to restore itself. We need a massive government spending program like the HEROES Act that House Democrats proposed. But I fear that Senate Republicans are going to shut that down, and Donald Trump is not going to do anything about it.
Steve Radner, do you agree with that? And just practically speaking, for large employers that are still obviously having people work remotely or furloughing their workers, is it believable that they will all be going back someday? Because it doesn't seem realistic or practical to me.
No. First of all, I agree with almost everything Seth said. We may disagree about a few details, but we're absolutely on the same page. But I think to your point, Mika, it's important to emphasize that the people who are coming back now are kind of the easy ones to bring back, the quickest ones to bring back, the people who are on temporary furlough, the people who are on businesses that have begun to reopen under these various reopening orders. It's going to get tougher and tougher, I think, as we get into this, to chip away at this still massive number of unemployed people. For example, people who work in the hotel, hospitality, restaurant, travel industries, none of those industries are coming back anytime, fully anyway, in the immediate future, and you're still going to see a lot of people on layoff there. Every time I talk to a CEO, they tell me that they're going to not bring back the same number of people they had before. They've learned how to do more with less. They're cutting their capital expenditure budgets. This is going to get tougher. And so I would just underscore what Seth said. While we might disagree on some details, we absolutely need more action from Congress. And I would just also say that Federal Reserve Chairman Jay Powell, who of course was a Trump appointee, has been saying this. And his much more sober, realistic tone has been in stark contrast to people like Larry Kudlow and Stephen Mnuchin telling us we're going to have this V-shaped recovery. I don't think serious people like Jay Powell believe that, and I don't believe that either.
All right, Steve Ratner and Seth Harris, thank you both very much for being on this morning.